So I'd like to introduce to you Liam Fahey, who is a recent graduate of IADT, Institute of Art, Design and Technology in Dún Laoghaire in Dublin. And he is going to do a presentation on how to put together a portfolio for Art College. Liam, take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Emma. Right. Okay. So welcome to my Art College portfolio talk. Like the title suggests, my goal with this talk is for it to be kind of an introduction to art colleges, the kind of courses available and how to go about making a portfolio to submit and hopefully get into one of them. Lengthwise, this will be something around like the length of a double art class, so maybe 2 40-minute segments, all going well. The first section focusing on art courses and what do they look for in portfolios, and the second where I'll go through some actual portfolio examples. Well, first things first, who is this handsome chap? So I thought it might be no harm to tell you quickly a little bit about who I am and how I got here. So I'll give a quick summary about me. So my name is Liam Fahey. I'm from Quinn in Clare, and I'm an animation graduate from IADT. And while I was at IADT, I was an open day volunteer. So I would have been one of the people walking around that you could have asked questions about your portfolio and so forth. And I loved it. So I loved doing that. And I did it any chance I could. That was why this was kind of like my first idea for like what kind of a workshop could I do. So we're just going to give a very, very quick, let's say 60-second kind of a history of how I got here, very quick. So after crying my way through the Leaving Cert, I did a PLC course for a year in the Limerick College of Further Education, where I finished the portfolio I had started towards the end of secondary school. And it was there that I met two of my dearest friends, Ira and Rachel. We all loved animation and had our sights set on the IADT and Ballyfermot animation courses in Dublin. So I then finished my portfolio and submitted it, and dream come true. I got full marks and I got into the IADT animation course. So there's me working at my desk in first year, and there's a photo Rachel took of me asleep in class in the corner. So after many late nights over the course of 4 years, I graduated in 2019. And both my third year film, Morning Murder, and my grad film, How to Rob a Witch, won a few awards at a few festivals, which was very nice and very, very unexpected. And thanks to my newfound fame, Emma remembered me from the time we worked together at a youth group called Colin and Og, and asked me if I would do a talk at her swanky new animation festival. So in this opening section, I'm going to talk a bit about the art colleges and the types of courses available. Art courses are generally sorted into 2 categories. You've got design, which is about courses that are about creating art to serve a clear function. So like you're creating a poster to sell a film, you're creating a piece of animation to tell a story or convey a message. And usually it's you're going to be working in a collaborative industry. So you're going to be working as part of a team. So animators usually work as part of a studio, graphic designers usually have their own like studios where a group of them all come together. So it's very collaborative. So examples of those types of courses are animation, visual communications or graphic design, as it used to be called, model making or prop making for films, photography and fashion. And then on the other side of the coin, we've got fine art courses. So fine art is where you're creating art that has no defined practical function. You're more creating art to inspire or evoke an emotion or reflect something about life and the human condition. And in general, fine artists generally work as individuals, and they usually have kind of their own studio and kind of their own brand of work that they put into galleries or have galleries of their own. So that's painting, ceramics, sculpture, and printmaking or lino printing. You might be more familiar with that term from Leaving Cert. And of course, like with all things in life, there's crossovers between these 2 genres of courses. Because sometimes you got experimental animation, which is kind of more loosey-goosey. Then you've got fine art photography, and then you also have a kind of commercial ceramics. So you're making like pottery and stuff with a function. Okie dokie. So at the end of the day, they're all about the same thing, and they're all about communicating ideas or information visually. The courses and colleges have different requirements and preferences when it comes to portfolios, and these are all detailed on their website. So worth checking out. Those, or if you can, go to an open day. Now, of course, the times that we're in, open days don't really exist this year, but a lot of colleges have made a lot of efforts to put stuff online. I know IADT has done a lot for that over this year, so do check out those videos on their YouTube channel if you can. Okay, so and again, an example of kind of requirements for 1 and 2 courses would be for animation courses in general. They like to see examples of you studying and drawing living or moving things, because animation comes from the word animation comes from the root word anima, I think, in Latin, which means life or to live, I think. So it makes sense. You draw things that move, draw things that are alive, and where they live. So like people, animals, the elements, fire, water, smoke. That's the kind of stuff that they like to look for. And then they might have other small little requirements, like I know in IADT for animation, they like you to have like 2 storyboards in there as well. But yes, so do your research into the courses that you want to apply to. When you look up the CAO points, you'll need to get into these courses. You'll probably be shocked to see that they can be over 600 points. But fret not. The number is a combination of the points you get in the Leaving Cert and the points you get from the course's assessment of your portfolio, which, like the Leaving Cert, has a max of 600 points. So yeah, don't be scared of massive numbers. All right. Okay, but how do I choose a course that's right for me? Well, my advice to this dilemma is to find the problems you enjoy the process of solving. So a friend of mine in secondary school who was great at maths, I asked him one day, dude, how do you do it? How do you like maths? Because he was always banging on about it. And he said that he enjoyed the logical process of finding the right numbers, putting them in the right place, and doing the right thing with them to arrive at an answer. And I was like, oh snap! That sounds actually pretty interesting. When he broke it down like that, and I was like, so I started to look at my own kind of hobbies and interests from that angle, to try and see, like, well, okay, what are the problems that I really enjoy solving? A list of those for me, anyway. So I was interested in solving drawing problems. I've always loved drawing and doodling away and designing things. I love storytelling and comics, especially. And I love films and editing, and I got to do a bit of that with Emma as part of Corlan Nogue back in the day. I just love the process of just stitching a story together and then just conveying information. And then I loved acting and staging and directing. I was a member of the Clare Youth Theatre for like a good long length of time in my secondary school days. And I love composing images. I love composition. I love photography. My mother has always been an avid photographer, so that's kind of rubbed off on me. So I just love like setting up frames, like what's in the frame. I love all that. So anyway, all those things really tie together in under the heading of animation. And I found this out by going to these open days and looking up the courses and trying to find out, like, what do they do? What kind of problems do these courses deal with? Yeah, animation pretty much covered all those bases. And I was like, that's the course for me then. It's dealing with the problems I enjoy the process of solving. You can apply this that piece of advice to kind of anything in life. And you can really be set for life if you find something that does cover that for you. So find the problems you enjoy solving, and then solve them for someone else for profit. Hooray, money, great. That's capitalism, I suppose. What if you're still not 100% sure? You're coming up to Leaving Cert and you're still scratching your head, being like, oh God, I still don't know what kind of course to do. I haven't really done any of these kind of things before. I might be interested in it, but I still haven't actually tried these things. Well, you've got a couple of options. So these are kind of two optional routes to consider. So there's the PLC route, or the post Leaving Cert course route, which is what I did after the Leaving Cert. So what is it? What is a PLC course? So it's a one-year course in a college of further education generally. And it's a year, and you can do it. There's a huge variety of them in all different types of subjects, from like hairdressing. I don't know why hairdressing was the first thing that popped into my head. Hairdressing, but there's film specific ones, and there's a load of art college portfolio specific ones, which are catered towards you focusing on your portfolio, making a portfolio to get into art college. And generally, the PLC courses are usually partnered with an actual art college, and they usually have some connections with them. So it's a really good route. So some good points about PLC courses. So they're a chance to try a variety of new disciplines, media and design techniques, learn something that you may not have learned before in secondary school. It's time to focus on and improve and expand your portfolio and your skills and knowledge without having to worry about the bloody Leaving Cert hanging over your head. It's extra time to make a more well-informed decision about what course you want to choose. And it also gives you time to adapt to college life or living away from home sometimes, depending on which PLC course you go for. It's kind of like it's almost like a transition year between secondary school education and college education. It's like a perfect middle ground in between. It's also cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. So your parents will probably thank you for trying a PLC course before launching into a 4-year, very expensive college course. Other great points is it's a chance to make new friends and new connections, and gain new experiences to draw from, which is invaluable if you're an artist. You're always trying to get new life experiences so you can put it into your work. And as I said before, like I met two of my dearest friends there, Ira and Rachel, and we all helped like encourage each other and help each other grow, and also help ourselves like focus on kind of and find out what we wanted to do. And let me see. And oh yeah, it's also an alternative to Leaving Cert points. So in your Leaving Cert, you can get maximum 600 points. In a PLC course, you will get graded on your work, and I believe it's a max of 400 points. I have to double check that for me. But if you get all distinctions in all of your modules, you can get 400 solid gold points that can go towards your CAO. So it's another thing to consider. Now, my career guidance teacher never told me a thing about PLC courses. I don't even think she barely knew they existed. I had to tell her about a lot of the stuff I was finding out. And so people don't really like talk about them too much, but they are an absolute godsend. They're really good. I do not regret doing mine anyway. But anyway, let me talk. Okay, so what PLC course should I do? What they say in IADT, and it's a really good piece of advice, is your local one is probably the best one to do. So my local one was the one in Limerick, so that worked for me. But a really good one for animation, if you do want to make the leap to Dublin, is the one in Ballyfermot, which again also has one of the bachelor degree animation courses as well. But they have a really, really solid portfolio course. Some of the people in my class were from that year, and my God, just on point stuff. Like you could really just tell they just had a very good standard of drawing, and life drawing especially, from that course. Anyway, okay, let me talk about the other option. So the other option is common year, which is in some art colleges, they allow you in your first year to try a taste of a few of their courses before you choose which one you want to commit to then for the commit to them for the next 4 years, or 3 years, I suppose, during the last semester. But of course, the caveat of that is you actually have to get into the college first with a portfolio. Two colleges that I know offer the common year is the Limerick School of Art and Design, LSAD, and the National College of Art and Design, NCAD. And as an additional point as well, some colleges also provide summer or weekend courses. I know IDT offer a few portfolio ones. Limerick definitely does as well. And they're a great way just to kind of get in and kind of get to know the building or get to know the lecturers, and yeah, just a really great taster. If you could get a chance to do one of them, I would recommend looking into them. Again, don't know if they're going on this summer, but we shall see. Right, so, and of course, you can combo all of these together. You can go do a PLC course after the Leaving Cert, and then you can go into a common year then in a college, in one of those colleges, on top of doing summer courses. It's not like you're choosing exactly one or the other, but you've got options. That's what I'm trying to say. Right, okay. And again, it doesn't matter which one you do. It's what you do with the time that you get when you do these things. That's the main thing. So here's a lovely quote from Zach Drew. That's a perfect name for an art college student, isn't it? He's in second year in animation at the moment, and he got in with the portfolio he made during the Leaving Cert. But he really stresses in one of IADT's portfolio masterclass videos that they've just put out, how he wished he had done a PLC course anyway. Just to even read out the quote is, so I honestly wish I did one. It's another year of experience on top of everything you've done so far, and you come out a year ahead of everyone else who's applying straight out of the Leaving Cert. And that's a really good, and there's a really good piece of advice there at the end is, yeah, there's no real hurry. It doesn't matter how you get in. It's not a race, effectively, is what he's trying to say there. And you want to give yourself every chance to succeed, and to give yourself time to grow, to mature and improve. I mean, like, look at yourself drawing Rise from like last year or 2 years ago. You'll see a massive jump in your work if you've been learning and drawing steadily enough. So imagine what another year will do that for you. And you want to go into college and knock their socks off. So why not? Don't be in too much of a rush. So yeah, it's not a race. It's a long marathon. And there was no special gold medal for finishing earlier or at a younger age than everyone else. Trust me, I asked. There isn't one. Okie dokie. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes a bit. Okay, so anyway, let's get down to the main reason we're all here today. What the heck is a portfolio? So you've picked a course, and now all you need is a portfolio to submit to it. But what exactly is a portfolio? What is it? All right, so typically a portfolio consists of two parts. One part is 25 finished pieces. I'm taking that number from IADT. That's what they recommend. Other colleges may slightly differ. So 25 finished pieces can be of various sizes. They can be from A1, which is massive, to A5, which is really small, half an A4 page. And you can include work in progress pieces, not just finished pieces, and expanded studies. So like kind of like development pages as well. And generally, it's presented as 16 A1 plastic sleeves in a big old A1 folder that will break your back, dragging it around all over the place. Ugh, my spine will never forgive me for it. But that's how things kind of used to be now. Now, of course, with the way things are, digital submissions are kind of more the common thing now, where you photograph your work and you put them together into kind of a PDF or a presentation then that you then digitally submit to the colleges then. And the second part is sketchbooks. So at least one or two, aiming to have them mostly filled. It's nice to have a good solid filled sketchbooks. And they don't have to be A4. They don't have to be a standard A4 size. You can actually have a smaller one, smaller ones as well. and you can have different types for different things, or you can have one for all, which is just everything in the one. So you could have one. Some people have some where they dedicate it to just observational studies, like small and quick studies on the go. Some dedicate some just for life drawing or people sketches or anatomy study. Then some use them for like painting, testing out painting techniques and other media experimentation before working on their finished pieces. Okay, so in the upcoming section, I will show you I will show you actual portfolio examples that will give you an idea as to what a finished pieces and sketchbooks look like. All right, okay, so that's the physical definition of what a portfolio consists of. But what is the function of a portfolio? Well, here's what IADT defines it as. So, and I'll be referring back to these points and giving examples of them throughout the presentation. It's a collection of work that showcases your interest in a course and your ability at that makes you suitable for that course. So your portfolio work should show your creativity, inventiveness, how creative you can be with a selected theme or subject. It should tell a story. It should tell us something about you. Your portfolio is like a giant passport. And after looking through it, a lecturer should know who you are, where you're from, how, should be able to answer who, where, how, what about you. So who you are, who your family is, your friends, the people in your area, what your area, where you live, what is that like, what kind of pets do you have, what's the kind of local wildlife is around the place. Where, again, similar to the who, is where are you from? Are you a country bumpkin like myself? Or are you a cool city cat? What's your room or your house or your surroundings like? Where do you like to spend time? What are your favorite possessions? How do you live your life, and how do you see your surroundings? Someone who rides the bike to school will have a very different perspective in their portfolio compared to someone who takes a bus to the same school. And finally, what of the above creatively inspires you, and what do you do with that inspiration? And it's a point that they forgot, and there is a point here that they forgot to include, and that is what your creative process is. Process being the key word there. But what is that? What do we mean by that? Well, your creative process is the steps for how you take a germ of an idea in your sketchbook and explore it and develop it into a finished piece in your portfolio. In other words, it's how you bring an idea from beginning to end. And lecturers love to see that. It shows you're a thinking student who can take inspiration from their surroundings and experiences. You can try and you can fail. You try and you fail and you try again as you explore and develop an idea and bring it to a conclusion into a finished piece. And that you're not just a computer that prints out finished products without any second thought. I certainly know which student I would prefer to work with, and it's not the computer. There's a little hint. The work in your portfolio should also demonstrate a good, solid, foundational knowledge of these key design or drawing skills. Don't worry, you don't have to be a master of these, and you don't necessarily have to showcase all of them. If you have a decent grasp of 4 of these, you'll be doing fairly well. Most college students and lecturers and industry professionals don't even have a full grasp of all of these skills. So we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Like I'm still not very confident when it comes to color. So you do what you can with what you know, but you always strive to expand your knowledge and your techniques. Okay, so so when you are choosing work to include in your portfolio, always ask yourself, what skills does this show that I've got? how does this cover my bases skill-wise? So these skills are particularly important in an animation portfolio, but are good to show in any portfolio. And again, in no particular order here. Okay, so let's start off the first. Okay, so solid 3D drawing. Can you draw 3D shapes? Can you combine them and construct them together into different forms, like amorphous Lego bricks, and draw them from different angles? Can you give these forms a sense of weight on the page? And can you create a sense of depth on a 2D page? Second one there, awareness of anatomy. Do you have an understanding of the shapes that make up the human and animal forms, like skeletal structure? Do you have an awareness of how the spine joins the head down the back of the ribs to the hips? What are the main muscles in the arms? And how do these internal things affect the body's surface shape? Gesture and acting is a really important skill. Gesture and acting is gesture is the expressive flow through the shapes of the human form, from the top of your head to the tip of your big toe. It's what puts the life in life drawing. And it's what makes the difference between a really stiff drawing and a really expressive living drawing. To get poetic about it. Okay, composition is the arrangement of shapes within a frame. Can you lead the eye to the main focus in a picture? Can you draw 1 point, 2 point, 3 point perspective? Can you create depth again in a 2D image? Can you do extreme angles and use foreshortening? Color relationships, next one, is can you pick colors that complement or contrast well against each other? Can you use color to make a scene feel warm or cold, to affect the temperature of an image? And another sub point under this is lighting. Can you light an object from different directions or light a scene to show what it looks like at different times of day? Storytelling and visual communication is using all the above skills. Can you create different moods or emotions in your work? Can you communicate a story or an idea or an emotion with clarity, using all of your design knowledge, using everything in your toolbox effectively? Media variation is always nice to show a bit of range. So stuff from like drawing. So can you do drawing? Can you do clay modeling, painting, lino or stamp printing, photography, calligraphy? The list goes on. Some courses have kind of preferences for certain media, but in general, they kind of always appreciate some bit of variety. It just shows that you are interested in exploring things that kind of might be outside of your comfort zone as well. And again, it's something new that you as a student are bringing to their course as well. This is a very important one. The last one is reference and research skills. Can you show that you can research and study a subject through observational drawing or reference material to help improve your designs? That's a really key one. Definitely remember that. I'm going to be talking about it a lot later on. Okay. Now, if you're thinking, Christmas, I don't know how to do half of that stuff, or where the heck do I even begin to learn this stuff? Well, let's go on to the next slide. Well, these tutorials by Grizz and Norm are all you need. You can find these on Pinterest or in their book, 100 Tuesday Tips. These are absolutely phenomenal learning tools. If you studied and practiced the techniques in one of these tutorial pages each week, let alone each day, but one a week, you will be miles ahead of where you need to be drawing skill-wise for your portfolio. These are absolutely fantastic. I love going back to these every single time I'm on Pinterest. They're just very clear, and they really break down kind of like the key core principles of really good design, So study these, put their knowledge into practice in your work, and you will be flying it, I guarantee you. Right, okay. So this is the point. So that's the end of section 1 of the talk. Phew, oh, you'll be glad to hear. Welcome back. This should be the point where I should show you my portfolio that demonstrates all of these things I've been waffling on about. But I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that I've managed to lose my portfolio. How does someone lose an A1 folder? With great skill and dexterity, I'll have you know. It actually might still be in the college storeroom because that's where they kept it after they weren't using it on the open days. So we may never know. But the good news is, if I can click onto my next slide, there we go. But the good news is that I still have my 2 sketchbooks from my portfolio, and I've got some examples from both my class and the current one of the current first years actually in animation of their actual portfolios. So all is not lost. So in my portfolio, I had 2 sketchbooks. So some people have way more of all different sizes and thicknesses and page counts. All that doesn't really matter too much. So what I did have was I had a small pocket-sized A6 sketchbook that's there on the right, and I had an A4 hardback one, and I used them for 2 different purposes. I did like the idea of splitting the function between the 2. Let's talk about sketchbooks first as a concept first. So you may have noticed that I've capitalized the word sketch in sketchbook. So that's because I believe a sketchbook should be for sketches, not necessarily finished pieces. Right. So what do I kind of mean by that? So, okay, if you look around on YouTube, you'll find people's sketchbook tours, as they call them, where they'll flick through their sketchbook and show you what they've done. And each page is usually a fully colored, immaculate masterpiece, French kiss. Wow. Amazing, just like piece after piece, with nary a stray line out of place. These are barely what I would call sketchbooks. These are more bound collections of beautifully polished pieces. They're very impressive. Do not get me wrong. These are very impressive in their own right, but can be very misleading as to what the function of a sketchbook is. So what do I mean by that? Next slide, please. Okie dokie. So the function of a sketchbook is to sketch, to study things, to test things out, work things out, screw things up, try again, screw things up again, learn and try a different approach or something new entirely. Write down thoughts, tease ideas out. Be a sandbox for your creative process. There's that word again, process. So a beautiful sketchbook does not equal a bunch of pretty pictures in a small book. A beautiful sketchbook is a tapestry of your creative trials and errors, your highs and your lows. And I know a lot of my lecturers think the exact same. They want to see the ugly drawings, ugly inverted commas, ugly drawings you went through to get to your beautiful work. The ugly duckling wouldn't be a very interesting story if he was a beautiful swan from the start. And again, repeated drawings in a sketchbook shows a willingness to study and improve and a tenacity or commitment to really figure something out. And those are both things all good lecturers really, really value. So yeah, long story short, don't worry if every drawing in your sketchbook isn't a French kiss masterpiece. So you got a small preview there of one of my sketchbooks. This is the sketchbook I like to affectionately refer to as my crap sketchbook. And it was my small pocket-sized sketchbook that was easy was easy to carry, and it was easy to take out and draw anything or anyone or anywhere that caught my eye. So the point of this sketchbook is, what I used it for, was to try and develop a habit of drawing some observation into it every day, just trying to get into the habit of drawing. Lecturers do like to kind of get a sense, they like students who are drawing on a frequent basis. I'm usually very bad at doing that myself, but I really tried with this sketchbook to really kind of like just every day, just kind of make time to say, I'm just going to draw that thing, or if the moment something caught my eye, I would note it down, or even if someone was passing me by that I thought had a funny face or an interesting face, I would do like a quick scribble of what I remember their faces being. And again, that's my second point there is I used it to collect people, animals, places, and inspirations that I could then use then in my finished work to develop then later on, potentially. And my goal with the sketchbook was to keep it rough and loose and not have it be filled with pretty pictures. Which again is also very important for animation as well. Again, keep going back to the animation perspective on this, because when you're animating a scene, you don't go straight into finished illustration design. Because if you did that, you finish your first frame of your animation, and then you have to do the exact same again on the second frame. And then if you don't get your animation working right, then you actually have to throw them all out and start again. So animators always start rough and loose, just kind of getting down kind of the base idea before they polish things up. So it's actually a pretty good thing to show in your sketchbook that you can be looser, you can be kind of loosey-goosey, and just getting kind of the base kind of idea of what something is before really tying it down. And to try and keep myself from stay kind of loose and just kind of commit to what I put on the page, I limited myself to just drawing in pen to kind of force myself not to be too precious with the drawings. Though I do wish I did draw with some more pencil in there. Probably would have been no harm. Some of those drawings in there, they're fairly monstrous, I'll tell you that. But again, that doesn't matter. And the point is that you are drawing and you are looking, you're observing, and you're learning. That's what lecturers want to see. That's gold dust. And speaking of exploring ideas, that's what the purpose of my second sketchbook was. So its function was my development sketchbook. So I use it for stuff like idea generation, with theme exploration, which I did through mind maps. I don't have any on this particular slide, but I do in some of the later ones. I'm a huge fan of mind maps. They really helped me get through the Leaving Cert because I learn visually, so I find it easier to remember a mind map filled with like arrows and drawings and little doodles much better than I do than text on a page. Also much more fun to do than write notes. I didn't write just text notes. For me, anyway, I always used it for writing notes or design thoughts, what I thought was working in a design, what I thought wasn't working, what I think I could have improved, and little kind of design observations. Again, lecturers won't read all of your notes that you write in your sketchbook, and they shouldn't, because that's too much. That's too much to read. They've got so many portfolios to go through. But if they see text or that you are writing, they go like, okay, this student they're making notes themselves. That's good. That's a good sign. It shows that they're thinking. They're thinking about what they're drawing. They're not just pure drawing. They're thinking as well. That's good. So then, and I also use the sketchbook to kind of refine and tie ideas down that I could then develop them into a finished piece in my actual portfolio folder. And I also used it to do larger studies. So you'll see the goats there in the corner. Like I had doodled them I doodled our own goat at home in my A6 sketchbook. So then I wanted to do, so again, as I have an animal, I might as well draw it. So I wanted to do kind of a more expanded study. So that's what I did in the A4 sketchbook. And I tried out a bit of painting as well, which I usually hate doing. But again, that's what sketchbooks are for. They're for trying new things, just testing it out. If it works, great. If it doesn't, so what? Next page. So yeah, of course, not all the ideas in the book ended up as finished pieces, which is probably for the best because I probably wouldn't have had space in my big folder. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the development of 2 ideas that did end up as finished pieces in my portfolio. All right, next slide, please. All right, so remember how I mentioned earlier how the colleges like to see your creativity with a selected theme. I think it was back on the IADT slide, what is a portfolio? That's where I mentioned it. Well, the theme I chose to explore with a mind map on the first page of my development sketchbook was shapes. Pretty universal theme to kind of start off with art. Everything is a shape. I would show you what that mind map looks like, but I made the mistake of drawing it with a 6B pencil on the front page of my sketchbook. So it's been smudged beyond comprehension, even for a mind map. It's beyond comprehension now. It's just a smudged mess. So not one of my wisest moves, but hey, there you go. It certainly got me past the first page anyway of the sketchbook, which I know can always be a harrowing decision. But a mind map is a great way to start. Just start thinking. Start with writing, then draw on the other pages. Okay, so but it was from that initial mind map that I started looking at hexagons, which led me to looking at and doing studies of bees and flowers. And while doing those studies, I started noticing if you simplify their shapes down, they look almost kind of like futuristic machines in a way. And again, so then I really like robots, and I like the design challenge of turning something organic into something mechanical. So based off my studies of bees and flowers, so based off my studies of how bees and flowers are structured, I did out mind maps and concept sketches for their different parts, if they were machines, and which all led to the A3 piece on the right. So this is actually this picture is actually a photocopy of the original, which is still in my portfolio, wherever that is. Anyway, what key skills do I think this showed the lecturers that I had or have, and I included in my portfolio? So I'm hoping it showed them that I had solid 3D drawing, that there was a kind of a sense of like form, dimensional form to the bee and the mechanical flower, and also that there's a sense of depth in it. It kind of feels like that the bee is 3-dimensional. It goes back into the page. I hope it showed that I had composition skills, that I knew how to use not only the positive space, which is like the physical things that are in the drawing, but also the negative space. That's the space where that's the empty space, I suppose you can say, in an image. So you can see, because I knew that if I drew a very detailed background with this very detailed mechanical bee, the bee would get lost, it would disappear. So I decided for this particular piece, but I suppose you can call it a work in progress more than a finished piece. I knew it was probably best just to leave that space, leave the space for detail to kind of breathe. If I were to do a background on it, I'd probably do a very simple one so that it doesn't take away from the details. And the next skill then, I hope it would have shown that I have research and reference skills, that I can gather info and thoroughly study a subject before creating a finished design. Great, lecturers love to see that, they love it. You're not just doing the draw it out of my head. Wow, that's great to do if you've got a really good visual bank of reference in your head to draw from. But everyone, all artists in the industry, we all need to use reference. If you went into an animation studio in the morning and if you asked everyone there, draw me a bicycle, the first thing they'll do is they'll look up a reference image. And these guys are professionals. They need reference materials. If you don't have reference material, you're going off kind of past memories of what you think a bike looks like. and the end product will be nowhere near as solid as one that you have that you drew with the help of reference. But yeah, try that one out yourselves in class. That's a fun one to do. Try and draw a bike from memory, then actually go and look at a bike, and then actually draw or design a new one from that, and see the results. Pretty interesting. All right, okay. Oh yeah, so I hope this also showed that I have imagination and creativity with a chosen subject. So I chose hexagons originally, and that led to bees, that led to flowers. But with that focus subject, that I was able to create something unique, or something interesting from it. And that's the best thing about teams. Teams can really breathe, can really tap into your creativity. Giving yourself kind of limitations are a great thing. And I'll have more examples of that later on. And last but not least, I hope this showed that I have commitment, that I can commit to finishing a detailed piece. Not it's not a necessity to do anything this detailed, but it is a nice thing to show. I haven't drawn anything as detailed as this bee since my 4 years in college. So don't worry, you don't have to draw super hyper detailed bees. It's okay. All right, so would I have done anything differently with this kind of section of my portfolio? I would have done more thumbnails, more loose sketches. I think I tried to tie things down maybe a bit too early with the drawing. I think it could have done with a bit more time in the oven trying to figure out the exact composition more. I kind of wish I had left some negative space between the bee and the flower bud that it's poking at there. I think that would have really helped a lot. So again, kind of wish I did more planning and stuff like that. Which again, would have been great. Filled up more of my sketchbook. Fantastic. Next project that I developed. So pretty much the same process with this finished piece as well. I did a mind map about squares, again, leading on from my shape mind map. That led me to chess, which led me to the idea of doing redesigns of the chess pieces. So I tried to figure out what the characteristics of the pieces were based off their movement patterns and their original designs, to try and create characters from them. So I ended up with the pawn being kind of these brave, short shield bearers that make up kind of like the front line of defense, these faceless soldiers, because no one remembers the pawns, unfortunately, but at the end of the day, they're the bravest ones. So I wanted to kind of capture that kind of that short, butty, kind of determined, nature of them. While on the other side, then I decided just for the king, I imagined the king as a child on a high throne, because he's the weakest piece in chess, but also the most important. So his weakest, because it can only crawl one space in any direction, like a child. And if he's killed, the heir to the throne is dead. So that's kind of where that idea came from. So in my sketchbook, I did original mind map, brought that out into the characters, then tried out kind of different designs, doodled out different designs to try and find something that kind of clicked. So with the pawn, what actually clicked it in my head was actually, I was trying to write this, what do you do with a pawn? Because a pawn is so simple. And what actually triggered the idea, and you might be able to see it there in the middle, as I sat backwards on my chair one day, just out of pure frustration, and I realized, oh my God, that's it. When I sat backwards on the chair, I was like, oh, the back of the chair is almost like a big shield. I was like, oh, why don't I do it as a big shield bearer? And that's just what triggered the idea, really, for the final design. And for the king, it was really the high chair, really, that I got. I was originally thinking of him being kind of like old, or that he can only hobble one space, or that he's injured, or that he's weighed down with his wealth. You can see that very small drawing at the very top there. The quality of the photography isn't the best, but you can but there you go, it's what I could do. But yeah, so that's what kind of led to them anyway. So I did these while I was in my fifth year, and then during the PLC course, one of the briefs we so happened to get was to redesign a board game. So I was able to develop the idea more and do concept art redesigns of all the other chess pieces. And I can actually just show you just a quick glimpse at their pages. So there they are there. So I did out the queen, I did out the bishop, and I did out the knight and the rook. I haven't included him here. I haven't included him here. And I also developed out this like the idea, this concept of like what if with a redesign of the game of chess, where you could actually build up the playing field with these cubes, these black and white cubes. Just thought it was an interesting visual image. I don't know will it exactly work as a pretty good game, but I thought it was just kind of an interesting thought. So that's what I did for one of my PLC briefs. So now you may be wondering, how are these clay figures relevant to an animation course portfolio? Surely these would be more suited to model making. And yes, you would be right. Fun fact, one of the model making briefs in IADT is to do the same, is redesign chess specifically. Actually, that may have what gave me the original idea, or put that in the back of my head. I may have seen some work from them in the college in the open days, and I thought like, oh, you know what, I might give that a shot. But that's one of their briefs anyway, is to they're assigned a theme, and then they have to redesign all the chess pieces around that theme and actually make them then. Really cool brief. Always looked forward to that point of the year where they would put them on display. Really cool stuff. But yeah, so why am I including this in an animation portfolio? Well, model making is actually not too bad a thing to include, because because a lot of animation studios, the big old animation studios, they build 3D models of their characters so that the animators and designers can get an idea of as to what their forms look like from various different angles, especially in 3D films, where they have to digitally model them and build them from polygons and whatnot. But yeah, okay, so yeah, what skills was I trying to show with these? So I was trying to reinforce that I can think and design three-dimensionally, not just on paper, but with physical media as well. And again, that I can be creative with a specific theme or a specific brief, and that I have a creative process for bringing an idea from a mind map to a finished piece. Again, process. Keeps coming up. Oh yeah, big tip, very important. If you do include photos of your 3D pieces, it's good to include a standard size object to give a sense of how big or how small it is. So stuff like batteries, like I've included here beside the pawn, and milk cartons are pretty good. They're all the same kind of standard size. So people know when they see the photograph, they know, oh, that thing is as big as this, or it's twice as big as that. Now I'm going to show you 2 examples of really strong portfolios. These are really strong. But please don't for a second think, oh, shoot, I can't draw like that. Oh, I can't even paint. Oh, I'm doomed. I'll never get into art college. No, don't worry. You're okay. We all have our strengths or weaknesses, and we all have different interests when it comes to art and design. I personally can't stand painting. It frustrates the bejesus out of me. And I still struggle a bit when it comes to picking color schemes. So on a side note, that's also another really nice thing about animation as a course or as an industry, is that you'll often be working as part of a team. So someone can often help you with what you struggle with, and you can help them with their struggles. If I had never had help from my background artist, Shauna, the characters in my grad film would probably still be in black and white to this day. So thank you, Shauna. You really helped me there. Anyway, you don't have to draw hyper realistically to demonstrate good foundational design skills. Please keep that in mind in this next section. A simple, well-executed design can do the job just as good, if not better, than any highly rendered, beautifully rendered piece. And that's definitely the case in some courses, that a simple designs are almost preferred over realistic designs. Particularly in animation, because the simpler a character's design is to draw, the easier and faster they are to animate. Yeah, look no further of a good example of this than the simple shapes of Cartoon Saloon's characters for really good evidence of that point. So long story short, what I'm trying to stress is realism does not always equal good design. Same way, beautiful graphics don't always make for a well-designed video game. For all you gamers out there, like myself. So these are really good examples of everything I've talked about so far being put into practice. These examples, these portfolio examples. So first up, we got Robyn's portfolio. Robyn was in my class in IADT, and we're actually working in the same place at the moment. So I was able to badger her until she gave me some portfolio examples, because I lost mine. So her portfolio is a lovely example of a themed portfolio. That's where you take a subject and dedicate a good portion of your work to exploring it as much as you creatively can from every angle. Kind of similar to what I did with like the bees and the chess, but imagine if I literally just chose bees as my theme in a way. So oftentimes the best way to tap into your creativity is to give yourself a limit or a focus. Really, that has helped me so much throughout all my time in art college. Okay, so there are many great examples of themed portfolios. This is a side story I do want to say because it's a really nice one. So the most famous themed portfolio that I've ever heard of is probably the chicken portfolio. It was where the guy he lived on a farm and he drew loads and loads of chickens, just loads of them. Just page after page, chicken. The lecturers were apparently looking through his photo and were like, my God, this guy is drawing nothing but chickens. Wow, what's going on here? And then he started to create characters and creatures based off the chickens, and started creating this crazy art with their eggs, with their eggshells, and even their yolks. And like, it was the most incredible thing anyway that the lecturers had ever seen. And many people who have heard of this legendary portfolio have done their own version. Sometimes with the same theme, and others pick one of their own. I know that Jesse, who's in 4th year at the moment and trying to finish up, his portfolio, he did a banana themed portfolio. That was absolutely amazing. He did things like he posed the banana peels as if they were characters doing different things. And he actually carved out, this really stuck in my head, he carved out crazy faces into the actual bananas themselves. Like he peeled them and actually carved into them, and then photographed them. So I really liked it. I really liked it when I saw it on one of the open days while I was in the college. Even though I can't stand bananas. So there you go. You converted me, Jesse. Anyway, so with Robyn's, Robyn chose tea as her theme. So how did she visually explore it? So she did paintings of people drinking tea with tea itself as the medium. And then she drew in pen on top. She started looking at the different colors of teas and mixing different ones together to get different results, and then painting with them as well. Looking at the different flavors and seeing how light reflects through them when they're put into a clear glass cup. You can see that there down the bottom left. She started looking at the different textures of tea bags and how they can go all wrinkly like an old man's face. And there's a really like poignant connection between old people and them drinking tea, and then the tea bags themselves. Really lovely stuff. Really cool idea to explore. And she also looked at the packaging. She looked at the actual packaging of the tea bags, and created like collages out of them. It's a really nice one there in the middle of the girl drinking tea with the tea blanket that's literally made out of the little packages. Really nice touch. I'm pretty surprised she didn't look at tea cozies or teapots. But maybe she did, but she didn't send them to me. But hey, maybe that's something you can study if you'd like to do the same theme. Don't think just because someone else has done it before doesn't mean that you can't do it. You can give the same idea to 10 different creative people, and they'll all come back with something completely different. Often is the case. And trust me, I've seen a few chicken portfolios, and not one of them was the exact same. Again, you're just trying to reinforce your skills, your creative skills. So tea, if you like tea, give it a shot. Right. But of course, she didn't do just the tea. Next slide there. Okay. So now, even though it was a themed portfolio, she didn't stick rigidly to it, and you don't have to. You don't have to say like, "Oh, it's tea all the way." You can you can show other work as well. It's just that she had a large portion dedicated to this team of tea. So here's some examples of other work she did when she included. So she did life drawings of her friends and her pets, and there's a little cat there in the corner. I assume it's her pet anyway. She included storyboards and thumbnails for like different kind of stories or film ideas. I really love the one of the little light bulb man over there on the left, top left, waking up with an idea and then forgetting what it was. Very relatable. We've all been there. And then she also included some more collages and paintwork then too. So a nice bit of media variation. Okie dokie. So that was Robyn. So thanks, Robyn, for sending it to me. You saved me. And now we'll move on to the second example. Okie dokie. So this is Chris's portfolio. So he's in first year animation at IADT at the moment. And he had a very, very strong portfolio. I was blown away when I checked this one out. So a large part of his portfolio is dedicated to concept art for a world design, which I think was inspired by his pet bearded dragon named Cactus. That's the one here. That he's done some studies of here. Yeah. So now Chris may turn around and say, I'm totally off about all of this, but this is what I would be thinking if I was a lecturer looking through it. So Chris did some sketchbook studies of Cactus. He then developed them into a lovely chalk piece there in the middle. I think it's chalk anyway. And he could have stopped there. He could have stopped, but he decided to take what he had learned from studying his bearded dragon and to design an actual dragon. So going from the real to the unreal. Then he didn't stop there again. He started doing research and designs for the locations in this world where the dragon may live. Is it in the jungle there on the left, or maybe it's more suited to the desert on the right. So we started like developing these places and kind of figuring out like what are the biomes of this world effectively. And also note that not all of these are fully finished. There's down the bottom there, there's like the small test pieces that are building up to kind of more the finished pieces at the top. Again, that's a very nice layout structure he's got there. So what skills is he demonstrating here? So he's demonstrating good composition. The shapes really do lead the eye into the scene. There's a good sense of depth, second good thing that he's showing there. And he's showing he has some knowledge of 1 and 2 point perspective. Very, 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 very good to show that. He's showing he has a grasp of color. He's got nice limited palettes here. There's only like 2 to 3 colors with different kind of hues and tones being used. So blues and orangey reds on the right there in the desert. Nice contrasting colors there. And then green and desaturated reddish browns for the jungle on the left. And again, complementary colors. And of course, he's also showing that he's got good painting skills. This could have been done all in pencils, and I would have been equally impressed. The design skills are very strong, and the medium he's executed well in the he's obviously familiar with the medium of painting, so he played to his strengths, so he painted. But again, if I had seen this, and again, yes, if it was done in any other medium, but if it had the same kind of good, strong design principles behind the composition, the perspective, and the color choice, equally impressed, and any lecturer would. don't think that lecturers will look at the work and be like, I really wish this was done as a painting. No, they're looking for those core underlying design skills being put into practice. That's what they really look for. And again, last, very important point, he shows that he has got reference and research skills. It's very hard to create something from nothing. So, and again, I wish I had kind of more examples of it here, but in his sketchbook, I assume he has done kind of more studies of these environments, of these places. And like he's actually looked them up before he started doing them. Again, building a really good reference foundation to build off and invent his finished designs, going from the real to the unreal. Fantastic stuff, Chris. And it gets better. The next slide. So then he started developing what kind of people live in this world, visually answering questions about how they're structured, how they're physically built, how they're dressed, what tools they use, what pets they have, how they survive in this world. And he's done that through his sketchbook and these finished concept pieces. What skills are being shown here? He's got a really strong understanding of the human form and proportions. He's got solid three-dimensional drawing. He can draw his character from different angles. He's got good texture variation, the clothes, the skin, and the hair, particularly in the sketchbook as well, very well explored. Again, color again. Though again, I would have been equally impressed with all these if they were done in black and white. The design skills are just very solid. And again, he's reinforcing his process. We're seeing him develop these things in his sketchbook and then bring them then to a conclusion as a finished piece in the portfolio. Fantastic. Here, he shows us his life drawing skills, which is super important in an animation portfolio, particularly. Would highly recommend getting your friends or family to pose for you so you can draw them, or if they don't want to oblige, then what you can do is you can look up some life drawing videos on YouTube or Vimeo. I'll have some links to them at the end, or have some good channels to check out. Okay, so try to do a mixture of short poses that focus on capturing the gesture or the emotion of the action in a couple of lines. And then also do some longer studies where you're focusing on drawing or building the shapes and forms of the different body parts, like really trying to tie down like what is there. But again, always keep gesture in the back of your mind. Always try to keep that energy and flow through all your drawings. Something to keep in mind is a quick, well-proportioned gesture drawing that expresses an emotion, either happy, sad, angry, threatening, whatever, is better than a highly rendered and shaded but overall stiff drawing. That's something to keep in mind, definitely, when you are doing life drawings. Very, very important. And not easy to do. It's not easy to do. Nothing I'm saying here is exactly easy, so don't worry about it if you do find it a bit of a struggle. I still do. Another good tip is try using different drawing materials. Charcoal is a common enough one. I think that's what he's used here for the ones on the left, with some kind of chalk. Oh yeah, left and right. Sorry, what am I saying? But again, try different things. Some people use watercolors, which you get a very different result, or you approach drawing a figure very differently if you're using watercolors or paint. Especially if you're trying to do a quick gesture drawing. Yeah, very different results. I personally really loved using chalk pastels because you can get great variation in the line thickness, which is a great way, top tip, for emphasizing weight, or the weight of a line, like, is, and where the weight is in a pose. Are they leaning more on this leg, or are they leaning more on that leg? As a simple enough example of that. But yeah, live drawing, very important. And if you ever do get the chance to attend an actual live drawing class, some community centers I think run them. They definitely do in Dublin anyway. Not too sure about out here, but worth attending. If you can get some drawings out of an actual life drawing class with an actual model in front of you, bonus points in your portfolio guaranteed, because it shows you went out of your way to actually seek out an actual life drawing session, really good show. Oh, it just keeps getting better and better, doesn't it? Okay, so here he's got some really lovely animal studies where he's looking at their shapes, their forms and textures. Animals are just as important as people to include in an animation portfolio. They're living things too. Believe it or not. So I've also learned something about him from these sketches. So he has a pet bearded dragon, he has a pet dog, and possibly a pet rhino. Though he probably just went on a trip to Dublin Zoo at some point, which is a great thing to do if you ever get the chance. Though your local farm can be just as good. Also cheaper too. Here's something a little different, where he shows that he has some modeling skills. So he made a skull mask on the right from a mix of paper mache and styrofoam, and then set up a couple of still life arrangements with it and lit it in different ways, and then to try and give it like different moods, different compositions, and did a bunch of painting and chalk studies of it. Again, he didn't just do one and cut it a day. He tried different mediums, he tried different angles, and kept refining it till he got it. He got the one that he was happy with, to include as a finished piece in his portfolio. So all the attempts that came before aren't failures. They're valuable steps that lead to the finished piece. And we can see that he improved and refined the design with each pass. Lecturers love to see growth just as much as they do to see lovely finished pieces. Keep that in mind. So here's a really lovely demonstration of process again. So in his sketchbooks, he's done different thumbnails to try and find the best composition to communicate the emotion he wants in the finished piece to convey. And it kind of seems to be kind of like a tender relationship between these two characters that he has here. So after he did those thumbnails, he then did out some small scale watercolor tests in his other sketchbook there, to kind of figure out what colors to use and how to light the scene, what direction to have the light coming in from. Trying to like figure out all these like design questions he has before working on the finished piece. That's a very good method to use. And again, valuable portfolio material. Process. So again, I can see his thinking. I can see his thinking from the little notes that he's writing, from like the different iterations he's doing, from that repetition. And I can see how he brings that all then together into a finished piece. So he's brought that. I've seen the growth of this idea from its inception in the sketchbook to the end in the portfolio. So after looking at those super solid examples of what to do, let's quickly go through some points on what not to do, or things to avoid anyway, in your portfolio. And again, these are general observations that I've kind of like picked up over the years. So try to avoid scribbling out. I know we've all been there. You've done a drawing that you're not happy with, and you go like, "My God, I don't want anyone to ever see this," and you want to just scribble it out of existence. Try to avoid doing that, because again, you're destroying a valuable step in your process. What a good thing to do is if you really want to mark it as like it was a mistake, put a little X beside it. I always do that with my drawings. I don't X out the drawing itself. I just put a little X beside it. It's almost as if I'm making a mental note to myself, like, okay, that doesn't really work. And then write notes as to why you don't think it works. And again, write these notes to yourself. Don't write them for your lecturer or the lecturer or whoever's going to be reading them. Keep them personal. Just like, oh, if I did this differently, maybe that'll do that or whichever. Don't worry about the person reading them, because chances are no one's going to read them, only you. But yeah, so write kind of design notes and observations of what could possibly improve it, and then try it then beside it then, or on the next page, whichever. Again, that repetition of kind of try something, screw it up, and then be like, okay, what can I try a bit differently? Let's write that down. Okay, let's give that a shot. Oh, didn't work again. Maybe something else. That repetition is great to see, and lecturers know to look out for that. because it shows learning and it shows commitment. Oh, and I really, if you really do want to cover up your mistakes, in inverted commas, though I think you should wear them with honor. A technique I've seen used a lot in a lot of sketchbooks is post-it notes. So they'll screw up their drawing and then they'll go like, oh, that didn't work. They'll get a post-it note, they'll slap it down on top of the part of the drawing that they didn't think worked out all that well, and then they'll fix it, they'll redraw over it. Then they'll like draw like the better leg or the better foot or the better head. And then the nice thing about that is that if you properly tape down your post-it note, then is that someone can come along and easily like flip it then to say like, oh, what was the before, what was the after? Really, really good idea. I never did that, and I kind of wish I had done. It also has a nice little bit of splash of color into your sketchbook pages. Not that aesthetics really matter in your sketchbook. Again, aesthetics are for the finished pieces, but good thing to keep in mind. Okay, next point then is try to avoid poor layout. Use the space in your portfolio sleeves if you are submitting a physical portfolio, that is. Presentation does go a long way. Avoid trying to leave too much free space in the sleeves, or like have pieces like floating, like very small pieces like floating spaced out. Try to make each sleeve or each page of your digital presentation or whatever it is that you submit, try to make it kind of that it's satisfying. That not that it's overpacked, but that there's just enough visual information on screen or in the sleeves that engages the person who's watching it. You don't want to have the person look at the thing and be like, oh, there's not a. I'm seeing a lot of empty space. I'm not seeing a lot of stuff. They want to see stuff, not too much empty space. So try and strike a balance. Try to create clear sections in your portfolio as well. I know at the back of my A6 sketchbook, I've got like little thumbnails done out for like all the different sleeves of my portfolio, and I'm planning out like, okay, these first two sleeves, it's going to be, so the opening of my portfolio is going to be, it's going to portrait of me so they know who I am, and then that's going to be followed by me putting different expressions. So me, I'm the first section there. Second section there, going to go into maybe my life drawing, then going to go into animal studies, then the next two pages then, and then I'm going to go into my storyboards and my character designs, etc., like that. So try to kind of section everything out so that there's kind of like some kind of thematic kind of flow through the different bits of the portfolio. And the next point, okay, this next point is it's a pretty big one. It's kind of a messy one, but it's something that they always mentioned at the IADT Open Days anyway, particularly for animation, is try to avoid including direct fan art or copying or straight copies of art or designs that you really like. So this can extend to stuff like Disney, to Marvel, to anime. Those were always the ones they always kind of heralded in IADT, and you'll see it in the IADT portfolio video on YouTube that they specifically name anime and manga straight out. They say, "Oh no, we don't want to see it." So yeah, but again, it extends to kind of all those intellectual properties. Unlike J. Jonah Jameson, they don't want to see pictures of Spider-Man. But again, so this kind of sends people this can kind of send mixed messages to people. So kind of say, well, I like this stuff, I'm inspired by this artwork, if I include it, like, does that immediately disqualify me? Yeah, so it's kind of a messy kind of area. So I'm going to try my best to try to give my thoughts, my observations on it, based on conversations I've had with lecturers as well. So yeah, they're not interested in seeing someone else's creativity. They're not interested in seeing someone else's character. They're interested in seeing your creativity. So they don't want to see someone else's character in your portfolio. Their character is in their portfolio. So they want to see you. They want to see you and yours. That's a really important thing to remember with that. I remember one of the open days, this one guy came up to me and he had really great drawings of like Overwatch characters and characters from The Walking Dead. I was like, these are really good. And of course, I recognize them because I'm familiar with those properties. But I kept thinking to myself as I was going to the pages, like, these are really great, but I know the lecturers are going to be thinking like, okay, but where are your characters? I want to see you. I want to see your own. I want to see your cyber ninja or your zombie apocalypse survivor. I don't want to see something that someone else's. But anyway, I'll move on to my next point. Okay, so trouble. Oh yeah. So if they do see a lot of fan art, it can also flag with them, or especially fan art of a particular style or aesthetic. It can flag with them that like you might have a lack of variety in your design skills, and that you kind of only favor like certain aesthetics. So for example, like the classic is you might do you only draw pretty or handsome characters? There's nothing wrong with that. Draw all the pretty or handsome characters you like, but do consider trying to draw a hideous character or ugly character in inverted commas, because that shows range. Like, yes, I can do beautiful, but I can also make something really hideous really appealing as well. And oftentimes a hideous character can be 10 times more appealing than a beautiful or handsome character. Think of I don't know why, but yeah, Batman to the Joker, effectively. Oh, why was that the first example like popped into my head? I don't know. But yeah, so ask yourself that if you are drawing a lot of handsome or pretty characters, try to challenge yourself and draw an ugly character. And speaking of that as well, if you are drawing a lot within a certain style or certain beautiful aesthetic, you can also show that you are also reliant on some of the style limitations of that aesthetic. So yeah, the classic example is if you draw a lot of anime fan art or anime style fan art, chances are the only chins you ever draw are really pointy, or the only noses you draw are really really small, maybe even just dots, or maybe none at all. So try to be aware. So if you are drawing within a certain aesthetic, try to see like, well, okay, what am I not including? And maybe I should actually try including that. Because yeah, if you do show that you are only drawing pointy chins and no noses, it kind of can show like an obliviousness to your shortcomings, or an unwillingness to grow. So challenge yourself. Try something else. Give that pretty anime boy a big old schnoz and see what you get. You never know. It might be something cool. So it's also very hard to execute these styles really well. There's a big leap in quality between professionals who draw this stuff for TV and amateur work that you might find on the back ends of DeviantArt. And you don't want to give the impression that you're an amateur. You want to give the impression that you are solid, that you've got a solid, good foundation, that you're good, that you can be a professional someday. So it can sometimes fall into the kind of the amateur character if you don't absolutely nail the aesthetic that you're going for in these particular styles, whether it's Disney, Marvel, or anime. Also, lecturers are very bad at distinguishing anime fan art from unique anime style artwork that you are making. Do you think this man knows who Boruto or Naruto is? Naruto, whatever. This is one of my lecturers, Gary Blatchford, who is an absolute saint. I owe him a whole lot. He helped me so much throughout college. And he actually worked as a background artist on the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was made in Dublin, believe it or not. But again, the lecturers aren't exactly fans of anime anyway. So when the risk is, if you do anime or maybe a typical Disney thing, is that they're going to see it, even if it is your own unique character, your own OC, as it were. There's a risk that they might think like this. I don't know is this their own work or is this something from a TV show I just haven't seen. So I don't really know. It puts them into that kind of gray area, and you don't want to put them into that gray area because they're just going to go, all right, next. I'm just going to move on. I don't know if this person has if this is original work or is it plagiarism. And again, it's all kind of a very fine line, because we all have stylistic inspirations that come out in our work, myself included. But it is something to be aware of anyway. Long story short, too long didn't read. don't copy a direct design from someone else's work into your portfolio. You'd be doing pretty okay if you did that. We're wrapping up now. We're coming towards the end. So I'd like to finish with some key advice. Don't feel discouraged. I know when I saw my first portfolio example in the Limerick Art College, I was completely floored. It was a really good example, really strong. They weren't pulling any punches with that one. And my goal today wasn't to discourage you from doing a portfolio or showing you by showing you some super strong examples. I wanted to show you something. I wanted to show you some really good, solid examples that are putting really good ideas into practice, that you can also take those really good ideas and put them to practice in your own work. I think it's good to look at good, solid examples, as scary as it may be at times. You don't have to be able to draw the same as any of the examples that I've shown today to get into art college. I still can't draw or paint as good as half my colleagues' work that I just showed today. And I managed to make it through, and you will too if you keep studying tutorials. There are plenty on YouTube and Pinterest, and Viz and Norm are really all you need starting off. If you keep actively learning good design principles and processes and reinforcing those key foundational skills I keep banging on about, if you keep doing all that, you can do it. If a schmuck like me can do it, then you can too. Did you not see my crap sketchbook? My God, what am I doing here? So in this section, I was going to do like my top 10 pieces of advice, but this presentation is getting a bit long in the tooth. So I'm just going to give you my top 3. Maybe I'll do a separate video at some other point, and I'll post it on my YouTube. So like and subscribe and hit that bell so you'll find out if I ever do that. All right, so my first piece of advice is everything is a shape. This is a quote from Genndy Tartakovsky. I can never say his name. The guy who did Samurai Jack. I think one of his lecturers apparently said it to him. So yeah, everything can be simplified down into basic shapes. And once you can see and identify those shapes, you can draw them and thus draw anything. So if you're ever freaking out when you're drawing something, always bring it back to just like, what are the shapes? And say them in your head. Say them out loud even, who cares? That man's head is an egg. I'm drawing an egg. And he's got a big box, a big cube shoved into the top of his head. Break it down, make things simple for yourself. Everything is a shape. Okie dokie. Next one is be patient with yourself and persevere. This is what I tell myself a lot, probably every day. So in other words, forgive yourself for not being as good as you want to be at the moment. Keep learning, keep moving. One of the most important life skills you can practice is recovering after taking a hit or falling down or screwing up. So take every opportunity to practice that skill of getting up again and trying again. God knows it. Life will give you plenty of opportunities, guaranteed. And speaking of practicing that good piece of advice is practice doesn't make perfect. Putting good knowledge into practice makes permanent. Now, probably heard me say this around 10 times throughout this whole presentation, but yeah, finding good. So people will always say like, oh, practice, and you'll get good. But you could be practicing some pretty bad ideas, or some not bad, but kind of poor design ideas, and you won't get any better. You'll just end up reinforcing those bad ideas. So the key way to get better is to try to find good, solid design knowledge, or little like nuggets of like, this is a good design thing to do. It's good to vary your shapes. It's good to do straights against curves. It's good to do contrast. Those Griz and Norm tutorials I mentioned earlier, read those, study those, and put those pieces of knowledge into practice in your work. And that will really help improve you and really make a permanent improvement on your work overall. And speaking of good knowledge, I want to share with you some resources. here's some really good resources to check out. Save these and definitely check them out. Really good YouTube channels to look at. Bobby Chu has a really good one. Lots of really lovely inspirational videos there. And he's got a really good site called Schoolism, worth checking out, filled with tutorials. If you want to learn anatomy, start looking at Proco's YouTube channel. Got some really funny videos there that really kind of makes learning anatomy kind of fun. You Are a Storyteller podcast. Oh, golden podcast that is. Well worth checking out. I've learned so much. Everything I've learned about story, I've learned from that guy, effectively. Every Frame of Painting, fantastic for filmmaking. Really inspiring stuff. Oh yeah, life drawing videos. You can find them on YouTube, but you can also find them on Croquet Cafe, I think is what it's called, and they're on Vimeo now. I think they got pulled off YouTube because it's nude models. But well worth checking out if you can get to an actual life drawing session in real life. IADT have posted a bunch of they break down stuff, and a bunch of my my colleagues from IADT have done their own portfolio videos. So if you Google, if you YouTube IADT portfolios, chances are you'll find them. Oh, I mentioned Croquet Cafe twice. That's just how good it is. And Chroma MoMA has a really good video on how CalArt sketchbooks are bad for you. That's worth a look. I watched that before I did the presentation, and it kind of reinforced what I was talking about sketchbooks. Books, oh, we're talking through these all day, but you can take a screenshot. They're all good. They're all good. Worth checking out. But in particular, yeah, art books. Art books are great for inspiration. Look at Ghibli art books are really, really nice. Studio Ghibli. And Cartoon Saloon's art books as well. Both of them, but highly recommend. Right. Okay, dokie. Did I mention I wrote down 100 Tuesday tips by Grizz and Norm twice at the beginning and at the end of that list? Again, just how good they are. Right. Okay. We're pretty much wrapping up now. So I'd like to give some special thanks to the folks that sent me portfolio examples when I was desperately stuck, when I couldn't find my portfolio. Check these guys out. I've got some of their Instagram handles there. Maybe it's the same as their Twitter ones. I don't know. Some of them have YouTube channels, like Ellen and Amber there. They both have portfolio videos that are well worth a watch. Get someone else's perspective on this. I wish I could have included all the work that they sent me, but unfortunately, I had to go to this. I had to pick and choose. So do check out their actual work, and tell them Liam sent you, so they know who to blame for their surge in followers. And yeah, thank you, and for listening to me waffle for who knows how long this thing has been going on. I've lost track of time. I suppose the last thing I really want to say is best of luck and have fun with it. Drawing is meant to be fun, right? Go shows how creative you can be, and what you've learned along the way. And who knows, you could be where I am in a few years. At which point I'll probably have a beard like this. This is one of my lecturers in animation, Dave Quinn, who I pestered for questions at the IADT Open Day that I went to back in 5th year. And speaking of questions, it's time for questions and answers, if there are any. Who knows? So Emma, feel free to come back off mute.
Hi, Liam.
And hit me with those questions.
Hi, Liam. How are you doing? Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so there aren't any questions.
Great. We're done here. Let's get out of here. Our college just needs to get into.